All right, this one's going to be a Caddistrophic Pupa. This is my little version of a caddis emerger pattern, and I tie it with a bead head. So what I've got here is a Tiemco 2487 hook. This is a size 14, and I've got a 2mm black tungsten bead slid on there. Now I use a smaller size tungsten bead because I don't want this fly to plummet down to the bottom. I want it to fish up toward the surface. Unweighted altogether, it'll almost float, so the bead is to sort of counteract the CDC that we're going to put on there later. And it's going to keep the fly from being too far down in the water column. Now, if you want to fish it deeper, obviously you can use a bigger size bead. I'm going to take, I'm using some 74 denier Lagerton thread, which you probably can't find anymore. So 8/0 olive dun unithread will work just perfectly in its place. I'm going to start that thread just behind the bead there. And I'm going to tie in a strand of brown Flexifloss or Superfloss. There's a lot of different brand names for this stuff. It's the same stuff you'd use for the legs on a Pat's rubber leg. And I'm going to catch it here up at the front, but I'm going to leave a long tag end sticking out the front. And I'm going to wrap back over it, trying to keep it flat on top of the hook. Back down around the bend here. And then I'll come forward again. And here I'm going to tie in a piece of chartreuse colored brassy sized ultra wire. And again, true to form, pro tip, tangle that shit up as much as you can. It works better. And it also keeps you from having to really search for an end. You can just make an end wherever you want. So I'm going to take a piece of this brassy sized chartreuse wire, and I'm going to catch it along the near side here and wrap back over it all the way back to the bend. Like so. So we've got our wire and our stretch tied in there. Now some pale olive Hairtron dubbing. And obviously the color is up to you. I'm going to use pale olive for this one. I'm going to begin to dub the body here. Alright, so I've dubbed the thread. And I'm going to start the dubbing back here around the bend. And I'm going to build sort of a chunky little body here with a bit of a taper to it. You can see I haven't dubbed that dubbing on terribly tightly on purpose. I want it to sort of shag out after the fact. And I dub almost right up to the bead. You can see there's a little space there behind the bead, so I'm not jammed up tight, and you can see that body's relatively loose. Now, one of the most striking things about a caddis pupa is it has a dark backstrap, and that's what this Flexifloss is going to become. So I'm going to pull this up over the top of the fly, but I don't want to pull it right square on my right square across the top. I want to pull it just slightly to my near side, and I'm not going to stretch it too terribly much. I'm going to tie it down with a couple turns there. I cut that other end just a bit shorter so it's not in my way. You can see how that's off center. So now what I'll do is I'm going to pick up my wire and I'm going to come around the bend. And the reason I set that stretch in off to my near side is as I rib through with my wire, that will pull the rib to the top of the fly. And you can see we've got a nice light dark variegation there. And I'll tie my wire off with a few turns. And because it's brassy size, I've got to helicopter it to break it off. Alright, now we're going to make the little wing buds. So I'm going to take one strand of this Flexifloss and pull it back on my near side and hold it a little on the low side and wrap back over it, overlapping the front edge of the abdomen so that it's pinned back along the side of the fly. And then that piece that we left is going to become the wing bud on the far side, like so. And you can see I want those sticking out to the sides of the fly. And if you want to trim those now, it really doesn't make a huge difference, but I'm going to trim those just short at the end of the body. So they're just short little stubs. Now for the legs and danglies on this bug, I'm going to use just some natural dun CDC. I want to get a couple of nice fairly dense feathers here. So I've got 2 natural done CDC feathers. And what I'm going to do is grab their tip and again sort of create a separation point. And then come in and just trim the center stems out. So that I've just got the loose fibers coming up. I'm going to fold these up like so and sort of drape them around the hook. I want them just a little bit longer than the hook bend. And then with my material hand, I'm going to push them down around the hook. I'm going to come with a loose turn of thread, and I'm right up behind the bead with this loose turn. You can see it kind of pop down in the bare space behind the bead, and that will create a soft hackle collar made out of CDC. Now we're going to have a little gap in there. Let me pull that up. You can see there's still some thread behind that. That's okay. We've got room to cure that. I'm going to come in and trim the CDC feathers out. Like so. And you can see that's a pretty disheveled collar. That's the whole idea. Caddis pupa are an ugly bug. No two ways about it. It's not a good looking critter. And this is going to imitate those dangly appendages really well, the legs and start of the wings and antennas, etc. So now I'm going to sweep that back and just make a few turns up here behind the bead to kind of push that back in place. I don't really wrap much back over it. You can see how that's just swept back, but it is all the way around the hook. And now I'm going to add the antenna. And the antenna are not so much to be anatomically accurate. What I had in mind with the antenna is adding a little bit of flash. They do have antennas, but I wanted a little sparkle, a little flash in there. And originally I used a material from Tiemco called Morpho Fiber. And it's a great, really fine little material, very thin flash material. The problem was it never got imported. I got a little sample of it, and it was great stuff, and I used it for a long time, and then I ran out, and it's gone. So we can't get that. So what I use now is 3 strands of shrimp-colored fluoro fiber. So I've got 3 strands here. I'm going to tie these in at the center of their length, just up behind the bead. And I'm going to fold the front end back and wrap over it. So I've got now 6 strands kind of dangling back up over the top. And you can see how shiny that is. And now I'm going to dub the head. And the head on this bug is SLF prism dubbing in black peacock mixed with hairline dubbing in black. So it's rabbit fur and prism dubbing mixed together. You can see that's sort of a coarse mixture. And I'm going to take and dub this on very loosely. This is one of the few instances where I dub loosely. You can see how ragged that strand of dubbing is. And I sort of overdub it on purpose. We're going to pick this dubbing out, so I want to overdo it. I'm going to build my collar here behind the bead. You can see how big that is in relation to the bead. So I'm going to overdo that, and I'm going to end with the bare thread just behind the bead. And then I'll whip finish. Let those wraps slide off the back of the bead and sort of tuck in underneath there. Now you can use a dubbing brush or a piece of Velcro. I'm going to use Velcro here to pick this dubbing out. And I'm going to sweep back, and you can see how this is going to sweep those long fibers of that dubbing back along the body and sort of into that CDC collar. So it's not so much the dubbing as it is creating a soft hackle halo around the front of the fly, like so. Give you a little more light here. Get a little better look at that. And you can go at that pretty aggressively. Now before I trim the antenna, I like to take a black Sharpie marker and I'll grab these antennas. I'll try to do it here where you can see it. I'm just going to turn the fly all the way upside down. And I'm just going to bar very closely together with the tip of the marker, bar those antennas to give them some variegation. You can see that just models that up. And then I'll trim those twice the length of the body. Now one of the things I like to do, I'm going to lower this fly down a bit so you can see this, is these antennae are very straight. If you take your thumbnail or your scissor blade and run them up it, that'll curl them and rag them up a bit so they're not quite so even and square. And I'll usually kind of trim them random lengths while I'm at it. And there is our finished Caddistrophic Pupa, aptly named. You know, the thing looks like a mess. which is what caddis pupa look like. But that CDC collar in the water is very lively. Those rubber legs, superfloss wing buds, I should say, have a little bounce, a little movement to them. Really a lively little fly. This has been a great fly on the Arkansas and the Colorado both, as well as the eagle. I fish a fair bit on the eagle just as a dry dropper rig. Great little caddis emerger pattern. Fun to tie too. You know, it comes out. If it comes out a little ugly, it's not the end of the world. That's the finished Caddistrophic Pupa. If you have questions, you know where to find us. And now it's your turn. Get to work.